Welcome to the Divine Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, Tara Magalski. Together with my guest experts, I cover topics ranging from cutting-edge healing modalities to hormonal harmony, to nutrition and plant medicine, to mindfulness and spirituality. My goal is to educate and inspire so you can create your own divine lifestyle. It's time to dive inward, rewire your brain, and heal from the inside out. Hey, beautiful soul fam. Please join Divine Lifestyles for a transformative and empowering women's healing retreat, October 16th through 22nd in Mexico. It's going to be a 6-night, 7-day experience that is designed to uplift your spirit, help you transcend trauma, and lead you towards a life of a renewed freedom and empowerment. Nestled in a serene and tranquil oasis, this amazing property in Cien Can provides the perfect sanctuary for you to nurture your body and embark on a journey of self-discovery, renewal, and of course, rejuvenation. Learn more at divinelifestyles.com/transcendence. Welcome to the Divine Lifestyles Podcast. I am your host, Tara Magalski, and today I am joined by Ron Stotts. Ron is a 3-time best-selling author with a PhD in psychology and a doctor of chiropractic. And he has explored the depths of ancient wisdom, and I cannot wait to talk more about that, and the latest in psychological and neurological studies and leadership as well, which is a lot of what he focuses on with his work. And he guides entrepreneurs and executives into the highest levels of conscious leadership. And Ron, I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm super excited to dive into this. Thank you for just taking the time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So I know you've had a really long and successful career, but I'd love to know a little bit about you before you did this work and what got you to doing the work that you're sharing with the world today.
Well, it started off fairly simply as being kind of the all-American kid and enjoying life. And then I went in the Marine Corps in 1967, and that was kind of the height of the Vietnam War. And it turned out that was not my best choice in life at that point. And I did get out, but a lot of my friends didn't. And so really post 67, I was a mess. And I finally got to the point where I'd lost custody of my sons and got divorced, and really nothing was working. And I decided it was time to end my life, and went up into the middle of the nowhere in the woods and attempted suicide during that attempt, just as I was plunging a knife towards my heart, I dissolved in a white ball of white light. And at 22, I had no idea what that was all about. But I had no awareness of my body, no awareness of the world around me, and just had this really deep sense of the perfection of life, really that there was meaning to my life, that the oneness of life. And it was a timeless experience that really, at some point I finally came out of it, and there I was in the woods still, functional and alive, and began my journey from there. I went up to a little cabin and spent months and months learning to meditate, not knowing it was meditation, learning to breathe, not knowing that meant anything at all, and learning to look deeper, basically. And as I did that, then I started reaching out for help from others, for education and PhDs and chiropractic degrees, and working with Joseph Campbell and Buckminster Fuller and amazing people that came into my life. And I got to hang out with them and work with them and create with them. And it just continued. And that was the journey.
Wow. So that was at 22?
In my 20s, yeah, all of that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So just really quickly, just to clarify, I would love for you to bring me back to that moment. So just about in the moment where you made the decision to take your life, you actually had that spiritual encounter.
Most definitely. Yeah. And I would say that was really is how do I recreate that? How do I have that experience again? Was really a motivational drive for me. And by my late 20s, I had rediscovered that and understood how to be in that state of consciousness. And so then it was more, okay, how do I share this with others? How do I support and serve others and create a more conscious and caring world, which is kind of my thing.
I love it. So so that happens in your 20s, and then I would love to know how you figured out to recreate those moments of oneness, of
Mm-hmm.
stillness before you started to share it with others. What were some of the tools and practices that got you to that
Mm-hmm.
space?
Well, breath has been and always will be my best teacher, my best guide, the most useful tool that I've ever discovered. And I've been using the breath for, 45, 50 years now to explore really the depths and breadth of consciousness. And you can use the breath to kind of breathe and become more self-aware, and you can breathe and really use it to move into various states of consciousness, almost like an elevator. Different kinds of breathing types and styles of breathing can take you into whatever level of consciousness you want to explore. And I remember out in the desert with one of my teachers once, really kind of doing my breathing as I was laying in or sitting in a meditation, and all of a sudden I started rising up out of my body and felt more like, rather than breathing, I was being breathed. And as I continued to expand into the desert sky, I felt more like rather than breathing or being breathed, I was becoming the breath. And it was almost like the universe I was being breathing with, or as an aspect of the universe. And it was really incredible. And of course, as you continue to let go, as you continue to breathe and let go, you dissolve past any awareness of self and into the higher states of consciousness. So just playing with the breath, using the breath to go deeper, to quiet the mind, to journey into the silence, into the light, and explore all aspects of yourself. You can use it to heal all the past. You can use it to really access the best aspects of who and what we are. I certainly, when I'm introduced that to leaders, it becomes, most of them aren't breathing. They're up in their head using their logical left brain to acquire and accomplish, and not ever realizing the severe limitations that that's created in their life. And so as they learn to breathe and create more integrated whole brain thinking, along with other exercises, they begin to access levels of thinking capabilities and agilities and emotional intelligence that they never had before. So.
Wow. Yeah, my husband and I love breath work, and my husband is become a breath work facilitator. He uses a specific technique of the breath holds and using the bandhas
Mm-hmm.
to create more expansion. I would love for you to share a little bit about some of the breath techniques that you use.
Well, the mind, all of meditation is really nothing more than a single pointed focus. You might whirl in circles like a whirling dervish, or you might be buried in a cave, or whatever the variation of meditation might be for you. So breath is really, you're using that as your focus. So just all you do is begin to, in a simple form, inwardly say in as you breathe in, inwardly say out as you breathe out. And that begins to allow you to be more present, more curious, and explore whatever circumstances you're in, or just to let the mind become quieter and quieter. I find that in meditation, the noisier your mind, the noisier your meditation needs to be. So, lots of times you might have to have music on, you might be chanting, you might have certain things in front of you, candles or whatever, to keep your mind busy. But using the breath becomes that place, that focus that can take you into the depths of who you are. So, you can count the breath. You can count the number of inhales, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it out 4, breathe in 4, hold it in 4. And that, you can extend to to holding 20, holding 50, holding whatever length you want to play with, because in that particular exercise, what you're exploring with is your fear of enlightenment, your fear of becoming all that you are, and your fear of death. And holding the breath in, really. I watch people really, their fear really is around becoming all that they are, while holding the breath out brings them really to their fear of death. And as you work through that fear of death, then you work through your fear of life and become more capable of enjoying and living a fulfilling life.
Yeah, I always say, breath. The first thing you do as a baby when you come out of the womb is breathe. And the last thing you do is breathe out before you
Yeah,
pass. So it's literally all that happens in between, but we are just the breath of life. So I love that. Thank you
yeah,
for just bringing the listeners back to that simple, simple practice of our breath that we all forget,
right.
that we can just drop in at any moment, at any point of the day.
Indeed. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love working also with the breath holds because I think it can really it can help you to really find that expansion and where you're feeling that uncomfortability, and really navigating that.
Yeah.
So one of my breathwork mentors, Rodo Escalante, teaches that, and it's called Alchemy: Art of Rewire, and how you rewire your brain
Literally.
through
Yeah.
simple
Yeah.
practices and rewire your nervous system. But I'd love to talk to you a little bit about some of the ancient practices that you have studied over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Share away. I'm so curious to hear about your experience.
Well, when you're on the journey of exploring consciousness, you run into a lot of different phases, and some of those phases end up being more supportive long term than others. But the breath allows you to, as you begin to explore, gently and slowly exhaling into a very extended point. I mean, one breath can last 20 minutes, and it can allow you to go into and through anything and everything that might be going on in your life, coming into your life. But as you move into levels of consciousness and breathe into levels of awareness, you begin to access siddhas, for example, would be a phase. Siddhas are powers or abilities, and those abilities might be, being able to connect with stars and have them dance in the sky, or they might be, your ability to quiet the mind, journey into the light to the point where if thought creates reality, you go beyond thought, so you go beyond reality, so you disappear in front of your audience. That's always an interesting one for folks. But it's like, no, I didn't not see that. You begin to, at least in my teaching, as I use the siddhas, it was always about look at what we're capable of, look at our interconnection of everything, look at how we can relate and influence and are influenced by everything, hoping that students would really grasp that the essence of that oneness and really move into it and allow themselves to um, to access that for their own comfort and recognize that's real control. You're not trying to control things, they're just being present with everything. And, so there's no limit to that. What level of consciousness do you want to play on? What level of awareness? How aware of your thinking, your feeling, your level of consciousness do you want to be on? And, you can be in the hell worlds and be quite comfortable. You can be, expanded to any level and be quite comfortable. But it's really when you go beyond all of existence, any sense of self, that you go into the void, if you will, and then come out of. You do that enough, you realize it's all illusion. And then you have to decide, well, if it's all illusion, then nothing's important. And of course, it's quite the contrary. Everything's important. And so that's when you get to choose, well, what do I want to make important? What's important to me? What's my highest intention? What do I aspire to? What do I want to breathe into? and that becomes your life. And you continue breathing and moving towards that aspiration.
So when we talk about ancient wisdom, like practices, are you talking about meditation? Are you talking about, like transcendental meditation?
Mhm.
Are we talking about breath? Like, what are some of the ancient wisdom practices like that are tangible tools that you can share to
Mhm.
access these states of consciousness?
Well, certainly we're talking about meditation. Probably by my late 30s, I'd meditated about 30,000 hours. So yeah, meditation is definitely a part of my practice. Yoga is certainly a big part of my practice. It's a matter of yoga for me is, stretching is something I learned as an athlete when I was younger. And really a core difference between that and yoga is in yoga, you're breathing into an expansive, a stretch state. You're breathing into whatever the resistance might be in your body and your mind. And with stretching, you're kind of pushing. That's more of a male pushing energy rather than that more feminine, um, inviting, drawing you into that more expanded state. And so, what have I tried? I, by this time, to be honest with you, I've probably forgotten more than I ever knew. I mean, I studied with teachers that would take me out of the desert, and we'd have extraordinary experiences, on a regular basis, far past anything Carlos Castaneda ever experienced or saw. And, but it's just a matter of, there's plant medicines. I didn't really get involved with those until I was well into my mid 40s, but they found
Yeah,
their place.
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
These times in the desert, were you using plant medicines?
No, no, no,
No. Okay.
no. You can go far, you can expand far beyond, in meditation, you go far beyond anything you could ever do in plant medicine. Now, I know most people don't believe that, but trust me, you can.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. The nice thing about that is when you're working with medicine, people have a tendency to go, oh, the medicine's doing it, and the medicine's opening those doors. The medicine, they give the credit to the medicine rather than really recognizing, oh, that's a capability I have. The medicine should just give you, the guidance and the support you need to reach levels that you're capable of, and then acknowledging that you begin to live on that level of consciousness, and that, of course, defines your life and becomes your life.
Yeah, so the medicines are just but a bridge, really, for you
All
to
that.
then be able
Yeah.
to see what it is that your consciousness is capable of.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about your experiences, like you said, in your 40s with plant medicine?
Well, I was more curious, and so I remember I lived in Santa Barbara and I love the beach, so I took some mushrooms and I was on the beach and in a fairly isolated, beautiful area, and laying there, and all of a sudden I kind of entered that altered consciousness, and as I was enjoying that, it was all fairly straightforward for me. But at some point, I discovered this cave, and it was, of course, in the plant medicine, very real. It's not, you're not thinking about it. And I looked into this cave, and I saw all these incredible masks, terrifying masks, but they were incredible masks, and I kind of like taken back by it for a moment, but then I realized, oh, this is my inner cave. And my inner child created these masks to protect myself, to keep people at a distance when necessary. And it was the funniest thing because I was in this really good state of consciousness, naively so perhaps. But, I called in, I said, great job. you know, and and just calling to that little boy who kind of had peeked around one of the masks, it's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be afraid, you know. And I just congratulated him on doing such a great job of taking care of himself and creating the art that he was capable of, but also, of course, embracing him and letting him know we don't need this anymore. and that outer love that we're always looking for, that unconditional love that every child is looking for, can only be found within. So that really began my, I'd done some deep work. I had worked with Barbara DeAngelis and John Gray and other people creating workshops and things. And it really began a deeper inner relationship with that inner child. And really, as we discovered disparate parts of ourselves that we'd left behind on our journey, and reconnecting and integrating them into our being, as we became whole. And as we became whole, we became more self-accepting and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. And that child is still a part of me, as many parts are. And, I asked my wife, that inner child does come out from time to time.
I've got an exciting offer for all of my listeners. The free Divine Daily Practices video series. Get simple practices to release anxious thoughts, sharpen your intuition, and rewire your nervous system in less than 10 minutes a day. Come on over to my website at divinelifestyles.com/divine daily practices. And over the next week, you'll receive a complimentary self-care system to drop into your authentic self and activate your divine intuitive wisdom. I hope you enjoy. How long have you been married?
Oh, we're just getting going. It's only been about 34 years. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
just getting going here.
Amazing. 34 years, guys. That's the real deal.
Yeah. And it's a journey of, I remember a time where I was sitting on the couch and she was in a chair next to me, and we were talking about something that was difficult. And, I've worked with couples, for years when I was just going straight for psychology. And I thought, oh, we're going into a taboo topic, and somebody's going to be angry by the time we go very far into that. And rather than close it down, which was my initial, thought, I said, let's breathe and let's go into this. Let's see where we can go. And by learning to talk about these taboo topics, we learn to develop a greater trust and emotional connection. We developed more empathy and compassion for each other, understanding and appreciation of each other. And so our life really became about, okay, how do we learn to open up more with each other? How do we learn to love and open up our heart more fully? How do we go on this conscious journey together in support of one another, rather than in fear that if one gets ahead, they'll leave us behind, or something that I saw in many relationships. So it's a very loving, conscious relationship that never has any problem. No. It has its challenges, but they're fun. They are always resolved with humor and in time. And but it's a much better way to go through life. Going through life with a partner, as long as you're not looking for them to complete you, is definitely a great way to go.
Yeah. Yes. I've been with my husband 11 years. We've been married for 4, together 11. And it's wonderful.
Good.
And
Good for
it's
you.
been a beautiful, beautiful, so many layers. And so it's just been a beautiful, evolution.
Yeah. As it should be for an individual or a couple. Yeah.
That was one of the things I said. I was blessed so much, blessed so much in this life to meet my karmic husband. So I'd love to just switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about conscious leadership versus authentic leadership. I know that I would love to know what you believe is the difference.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I see a difference. I certainly recognize that for others it might be a difference, but I think, I work with very successful high-level leaders and have been doing it for a long, long time. When I look into the leadership world, the challenge is every time when somebody comes to me, and whatever their problem is, whatever their challenge is, whatever the issue is that they're having, 99.99% of the time, it's really a challenge from within themselves. And so it's really about inner transformation rather than fixing a problem, a temporary solution with an outside fix. And that inner work, of course, leads to more self-awareness. It leads to emotional intelligence. It leads to more confidence and capability. It leads to a place where you become more comfortable with yourself, more whole and authentic. And from that self-accepting, loving place, that authentic place, that's real authenticity, not just the face of it. Your relationship with yourself is always mirrored in your relationship with others. So you become more connected. That connection with yourself is reflected in your connection with others. And so you're more compassionate, comfortable, caring, empathetic, supportive, engaged, and creating a trusting, collaborative, cooperative environment with others. And that creates your high-level leader. I've studied leadership considerably, and there's different levels of leadership that are well known in the research. And your higher level leaders are really nothing more than more conscious people. They have mindfulness practices in pretty much in all aspects of their life as a mindfulness practice, whether they're playing golf, walking, or meditating, doing yoga or martial arts or whatever it might be. They're doing their life mindfully. And those regular practices are what allow them to continue to expand that level of awareness, that level of consciousness that they come from. And they're also, speaking of plant medicines and other things, they're also inviting in significant personal transformational experiences that allow them to, as we were talking about before, the mindfulness helps them to shift to these higher levels of consciousness. But those breakthrough moments, and it can be a death, it can be a birth, it can be an incident in your life that you use. And, in all aspects of my life, I see anything that's coming into my life, I see as an opportunity. Everything is perfectly designed to support me in opening up my heart and accessing more of who and what I am, and that beyond any sense of even the separate being. And so, so an authentic leader is a conscious leader. That doesn't mean they're as conscious as a capable being, but, even the highest level conscious leader isn't playing on the level of consciousness that I would have, that were available, that are available to us. But you have to work at a vibrational rate. You have to work at a level of consciousness where you're living and working in the world. It's pretty hard to be working in construction at a high level of consciousness because you've got to deal with a lot of down-to-earth, everything kind of stuff. And yet, if you're doing the kind of work that you and I do, you get that opportunity to play at a higher level. But, truth is that if you're playing on the highest level, you're just not, you're just dissolving in the infinite. And, you're like a spiritual being just coming and going and meditating all the time. And that really is nothing wrong with any of them, but they all serve us in different ways.
So how long does it take if you were to guide someone into, a high level of leadership? How long would that take? I mean, do you work with clients for 6 months, a year?
Yeah. Well, it's a process that goes on throughout our life, of course. But I really do have my agenda for doing what I do. Is I discovered that the people who have the greatest impact on an organizational or societal level are your highest level conscious leaders. So it turned out, with my little random blinking my way through life, I turned out that I have a unique talent of taking people into the highest states of consciousness, which my publisher pointed out to me, and she suggested that I work with high-level leaders because I would be capable of taking them into those highest levels that other people only knew the characteristics of, but not how to bring people into those levels. And so when I first started, I was like, well, I need to find these really high-level players. And I had worked with some very seriously successful people before, owners of NFL teams or national hotel chains or whatever, they were. But it didn't take long for me to realize that, anybody, any C-suite or somebody who really wants to become a conscious leader and even play on the highest levels is capable of doing it in a very short time. It takes about 2 months to work through the emotional backlog and really become, where you're looking, as a child, you're looking outside of yourself for love and acceptance. And that's your program for love, whatever that is, that you established as a child, is all about that looking outside. Well, the change that I look for in that 2 months is they begin to look within for that self-acceptance and love. And that makes a huge difference. And so, I would say within 2 months, they've really dealt with their emotional backlog. It doesn't mean that things won't continue to come up, but they'll see those as opportunities. They'll breathe into them. They'll look deeper. They'll heal that, access the part of themselves that's ready to be healed and integrated into their life, which ends up empowering their life and taking them to the next level. And so 2 months really is a foundational piece, and then a 9-month program that I watched them really literally neurologically rewire their brain, begin to shift from the amygdala, the fear-oriented aspect of our brain, or reactionary aspect, and to the forebrain. The forebrain, not that everybody isn't using it, but it begins to blossom as your mind becomes quieter, which it does as you heal that emotional backlog. And as you become using that forebrain to really to guide your life, it's the conscious CEO of our life. It was meant to be. All of a sudden, you're thinking differently. You're thinking not what's best for me. You're thinking what's best for everybody, because that is what's best for me. And you begin to access levels of creativity, imagination, intuition, knowledge, wisdom that you never had before. And that leads to what I really am trying to get those highest levels to, where they begin to access what I call big mind, where instead of trying to find answers, instead of efforting, instead of going in their head to figure things out, they're quieting their mind and putting it out to a higher level of self, a broader level of self, however you want to say it. The request, that request could be for a design, it could be for an answer, it could be for, a solution of some kind. And they put that out there, and they learn to just stay quiet and let that answer come to them. I use it in my work all the time. I remember Buckminster Fuller kind of introduced me to that. I was very interested in accomplished meditator, and when I was working with him, and we were on stage one time, and he was like 87, I was 27, so he was, all of a sudden he stopped in the middle of a presentation, a few hundred people out in front of it, and I was kind of like, okay, he's kind of looking up and not doing anything, and I'm thinking we should be doing something now, and so that evening we were sitting around having hot chocolate in front of the fire, and he said, I said, Bucky, what were you doing there? Not trying to make him wrong, but with curiosity. And he said, I was just accessing information. And then he explained to me that, yes, I'm able to quiet and thought, that I personally could quiet my mind and stop thought. But he said, from that place, you can expand out and access wisdom and, from really accessing the best of who and what we are. And so that's really, I just was talking to a fellow that he's going to come up Friday this week. I haven't seen him for a while, but he's just blown away by what this big mind can do, because he's got 6 patents and 6 more underway, and he's just using it and having a blast with accessing abilities and wisdom and knowledge that he just didn't have access to before through that left brain logical trying and efforting. So, yeah.
Oh, boy, do I know that. I certainly know that. The mind, you can get caught in the monkey mind and of the doing. And that's why I've created the Divine Daily Practices, which is it's basically my version of my sadhana, which is some of my Kundalini training practices, which I mix in with my meditation, breath, some mantras, because I like to use the voice to soothe and to just clear my chakras in the morning. I also think that for me, I just think mantras and singing is just so powerful. So I've started
Yeah.
to add that in
Mm-hmm.
to just like help raise my vibration first thing in the morning. And I'll tell you, because we get caught so much in the day to day of like, oh my God, I mean, I'm even looking at my list of to-dos, right? And I was just thinking, wow, I can't wait after this interview. I'm going to take 10 minutes to breathe and quiet my mind just so I know exactly what I should be doing next. Because sometimes I feel that, this big mind, I love that idea. Even during the day, I have to stop myself and go, okay, you're starting to go down this path of like the crazy to-dos. And then you get overwhelmed and then you kind of shut down. Step away, do some sort of practice, even if it's 5 minutes. I do a prayer, I ask my angels and the ancestors and God to guide me. What is it that I need to be focusing on right now to have the most amount of impact? And then get back into it.
Mm-hmm. So what would it be like if you integrated your breathing into all aspects of your life? So rather than taking time out to breathe, take time in to breathe during and with all that you're doing. What if you're
I sure am
accessing all of
breathing.
those things you can? Pardon me?
I sure am breathing, and I'm breathing
Mhm.
right now.
Okay. Good. Good.
But for
Yeah.
someone like me that like I'm running a business and I have a small team, right? So the brain as a Virgo goes and goes and goes and goes of the things that need to get done.
Yeah.
So I have to always just like check myself. Um, and it's become one of those things that I've been using a lot with like Spirit. My company is called Divine Lifestyles. It was given to me as a divine download during a very, very big spiritual awakening when I was 27. And so these moments that I find the ego trying to run the show, right, where it's my will, I try and just step back outside of that and say,
Mhm.
okay, slow down. This is what you think you need to be doing. But in actuality, what is it? Let me be guided to what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
So I relate to what you're saying. I just might have a different way of getting there
Yeah.
or just a different wording or
Mhm.
verbiage of how I get there. I like to say I'm
Yeah.
quieting the mind and connecting with spirit.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned ego. Ego for me is a lovely, I think it's a Hindu story. They always tell good stories, so I'll use that. But, it's about the king and queen leaving their castle to go tour the countryside and make sure everything's going well. And they put their seamstress in charge while they're gone. And of course, the seamstress doesn't have the abilities to of leadership. So as any leader who's, really out of their zone, they make all kinds of rules and limitations and close everything down so that they can control it. And to the point when the king and queen came back, she didn't even want to open the doors because they would recognize that she had, not done a good job or something like that. And the ego really, when the king and queen just acknowledged that that was their error for putting him in control and she had done nothing wrong, that allowed the seamstress to go back to do what she really loved doing. It allowed her to go back and be who she really was. And I think the ego really does not want to be in charge. It wants to help us work and live in the world and guides us through those kinds of things, but it really doesn't want to be part of really higher level thinking, bigger picture stuff. It's just not its job. It's not its character. So we have to put that other part of us in charge so that ego can really do its job effectively and not be sabotaging, but actually be a supportive part of that bigger picture.
Hmm. What was the most insightful piece of advice that you have ever received?
I didn't hear you. Ever what?
That you ever received? What's the most insightful piece of advice?
Well, it wouldn't have been words. it would be, it's to, in essence, it's breathe and let go, breathe and become. I think that's what the entire spiritual personal development journey is all about. Is nothing but that.
I love that. I love that. And it's very simple.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
I would
you.
love for you to tell everyone where they can find out more about your work. Where can they find you online?
Yeah. Simplest thing is just to go to ronstotts.com. That's my website. It's got a lot of free information, things you can download that you can use both personally and professionally. If you want to get on a call with me, all you need to do is go to nextleveldiscoverycall.com, and that'll get you to a calendar link, and we can chat about where you are, what it is you hope to get, and make sure you get there. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing more about yourself. This is just giving the audience a little taste.
Yeah.
Definitely check Dr. Ron out, and he has a lot to offer. And where can people buy your books?
Online, Amazon has all three of them. Yeah, there's one on initial leadership, overscheduled by success, which is written for people who find themselves not really doing what they dream of or are passionate about. And then there's a mindfulness book that's a year-long book that gives you guidance and journaling and that. And then there's a book that's more about high-level leadership and what that is and what that looks like to actually move into that level of play.
Yeah, so we can get them on Amazon, off your website, and I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes.
Thanks.
I'll have to grab your book on the mindfulness with the journaling.
Okay, it's a fun book.
I'm in the process of writing my book now. That's a workbook as well. And I love interactive books where you can actually be reading and writing and journaling and using it as a guidebook.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for being here, and everyone who's listening. Dr. Ron is a wealth of wisdom and has many, many years under his belt of doing these practices and embodying the work. So definitely check him out, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Divine Lifestyles Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your episodes. If you really loved this episode, screenshot it and share it on social media. It will help us to continue to make an impact. With gratitude and love always, keep illuminating your path.